think of Manchester, I think of football, I think of back-to-back houses, I think of rain, I think of music. But oranges? Yes, Seville oranges, scruffy, inedible and left on the ground to rot in Spain. But manna from heaven from one Manchester family. Every spring for the past 120 years, the Duerr family has been buying hundreds of tons of Seville's orange harvest and turning them into the quintessential English breakfast spread, Marmalade. Mark Duerr is managing director.
So we're now generation number 5. Great-great-grandfather's wife, Mary, was the person that really kicked it off. I mean, he was the businessman, but she had a reputation amongst her friends as being somewhat of a jam maker, and they took that forward and turned it into the business that we have today.
Bizarrely, considering where the fruit comes from, the Spanish don't really have a culture of eating marmalade. The word first cropped up in the English language in the 16th century and referred to quince paste, then later fruit preserve. But it was the Victorians who used the word for a citrus-based spread. Right, this is where it all starts. Mark, I can't see any oranges.
Okay, all the oranges are picked in Seville, processed in Seville, and then come over here in these barrels, ready for us to use.
So, how many oranges are actually in this tub itself?
This takes about 1,000 oranges to make one of these barrels.
1,000 oranges. Now, how old is this?
This is this season's from January this year.
Fine. And what's the shelf life of this sort of tub?
Yeah, I mean, there's one crop a year.
Right.
So we buy enough in January to last us through to next January.
Marmalade is a massive seller, and it's the product that's actually made this company where it is today. Logistics of this factory are very complicated because we are a small factory within a Victorian housing estate. So at the end of the day, the problems are a lot greater than we would be if we were in a huge purpose-built factory.
So basically, it's come through the pipes into here. Now, what have we got here?
So in here we make a cold premix, so we put the fruit and the sugars together effectively. You've got a batch process in here, so you need to batch up 1 tonne at a time. So the pulp's mixed with the sugars, and then it's pumped along this pipework into the cooking vessel, where we boil it up and turn it into marmalade.
So really, the actual process is relatively simple.
Absolutely, you're only boiling off water.
It's very Willy Wonka. The whole process now is monitored by this little box. So Mark, what actually sets marmalade?
We use a product called pectin, which is extracted from lemons and limes, naturally occurring substance, which we get in a powder. Right. We then blend it up, and then we put it into the marmalade when it's almost cooked, and that's what creates the set in the product, so you get a product that's firm. Okay, so this is the lab where every product is fully analysed every 15 minutes right through the day.
Right, so what's this guy up to, Mark?
He's checking the sugar content of the product at this stage. It's vitally important, in fact it's a legal requirement that when the product ends up in the jar, it's a minimum of 65% sugar to call it marmalade. It's also got to be made from citrus fruit, it's also got to be packed in certain quantities. There's such a lot of legislation because it's an old product.
So where are we now, Mark?
This is the filling area where the jars are washed, the marmalade goes into the jars, we go through a metal detector and then we put the lids on.
Unbeknown to me, I opened this up to have a look inside and it stopped the whole line. And it stops the line so they don't put the caps on. And I didn't realise that they having to chuck the whole lot away.
Sorry, Mark. Sorry, mate.
Stops the feed. Amateurs in the factory, eh?
Hold on.
So the product's now been through the cooler and we're into the final process, getting the labels on, putting the best before code on the lid and then into the trays and onto the pallet.
At this point it's still quite warm, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean there's still quite a lot of heat in it, but the pectin has done its work.
Right.
So we can pack it safely, knowing that it's not going to deteriorate.
You know, this factory produces 300 jars a minute. That's a staggering 150,000 in one day. Wow.
So that's it now, end of the process.
This is literally the end of the line.
Yeah, from the pulp to the pallet, 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
We can either go straight to the customer now or to our warehouse.
It's been a long journey from southern Europe to northern England, but here it is, the finished product, an essential part of the Great British Breakfast. A solidified slice of Spanish sunshine served up in a cold, rainy English city.